I'm Shayna, and I'm going to be a sophomore at Thomas Jefferson High School.
Hey, my name is Darian Peterson. I know Brian Beard, Mr. Beard is what I used to call him, from Maury Middle School. That was cool. It was a few years ago. I am no longer in school. I would have graduated from East High School in 2016, but I graduated from Emily Griffith in 2017, 2018, one of those years.
It's nice to meet you both. My name is Christina Damon, and I graduated from DMLK in 2010. And I've recently become the GT teacher there. And so I'm really happy to have you both here and hear your experiences. I too was gifted and talented, but things kind of ceased once I got to middle school. So I'd be really curious to hear your experiences. And thank you so much for your time today.
I'm Ruth Oshamari, and I go to CPA, Collegiate Prep Academy, I'm going into my sophomore year.
My experiences with it wasn't like too hands-on. I wasn't really into the High Strides and GT program, but I know that with being around those programs at Maury, I saw that you didn't see too many other Black kids in the GT program or the High Strides program, but instead there was probably just a sprinkle of Black kids in there. Most of them, I don't want to say minority kids, but minority kids were in traditional. And there have been times I had teachers tell me like, because you guys think that you guys are in traditional doesn't mean that you guys are necessarily not, I want to say slow for lack of a better word, but behind, I should say. But you guys at some point in time are doing better than the GT and the High Strides program.
In my own school, now 10 years later, I still do not see a lot of Black students in gifted and talented. And I just want to ask you all, why do you think that is? Do you think that it's because of the way that we identify students? Do you think it's because, what do you think are some of the reasons why we don't have as much representation in GT spaces?
I don't feel like the tests are they have any racial bias. What I was doing was looking at shapes and different patterns in, what was that, like second grade? And so I didn't see anything that would have to do with how I was really taught. Didn't have to do with what resources I was getting. It was just how my brain worked. Because I've seen my older sister, who also goes to DPS school. She just graduated this year. She was class of 2020. She didn't test into HDT in second grade, but later her teachers were like, this is a very bright student, why isn't she in an HDT class? Because of the way that she interacted with her peers, the way that she was in discussions, the way she actively participated.
That was the one thing that I was actually surprised about and happy that Maury did was, they kind of just threw the whole guidelines out the window, and it was like, hey, this kid's smart. There's no need for them to be in a traditional setting. They're showing that they can excel in an HDT class. But we also have to understand the demographic we're talking about. We're talking about Black students. It's not even necessarily in these days and times. It's not that the classrooms are pushing for kids to embrace their intelligence. It's the different backgrounds that they come from. It's not necessarily a popular thing in the Black community to be smart. You can literally go home and constantly be telling your family all these different things that you've learned and that you process, and they literally could just be sitting there oh, okay, you think you're smart, huh? And then you come into the classroom and it's I don't know if I want to, keep showing this, because when I'm at home, I get judged for it. And then when I'm at school, I'm constantly looked at, oh, you're the smart Black kid. So the world is so PC that it's impossible for anyone to sit there and say there's no opportunity. It's just more, the demographic is a lot of young Black students are scared to be judged or neglected.
I was feeling under challenged, right? Because it's one thing to be, to be in advanced math, but it still wasn't enough of a challenge, I should say. I could goof around all class, and I mean, I wouldn't miss anything because for nobody to be looking at my needs, it felt like, like you said, I would be invisible because even if I took a nap in class, it wouldn't matter.
At Thomas Jefferson High School, I was in honors English class. When we were talking about something in Lord of the Flies, we somehow connected it to the Black Lives Matter movement and police brutality. And at that point, I was basically one of 4 Black kids in the room, and the rest were fairly conservative white people. But that class was able to have really interesting conversations about race and everything. And it's because I feel like all of the Black people in the room were kind of helping lead the discussion and give their perspectives. And so I think that's a really helpful thing to have in the classroom. It's because usually when there's one person, I used to go to a charter school, DSST Byers, when there's one Black person in the room, it's kind of all eyes on them, and then they kind of feel pressured. And so when there's more Black people that can share their experience, it's definitely a lot easier than just having one person in there.
So go back to some things that Darian said in his comment. He was just saying how there's a misconception, and maybe this is why the referrals are so low, is that there are teachers or there are educators who believe that Black students would not be interested in gifted and talented, or they don't want to participate in these things, or they do not display these signs of giftedness. And so therefore we see less representation within GT. And then Shayna, I want to ask you too, anyone can answer this question, but do you feel like a lot of Black GT families have to choose diversity or rigor in schools? So meaning,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let me hear.
Okay. So I used to go to school, DSST Byers, and that school is, it has a very large white population, and it has some Hispanic population, but that was the best school in Denver. And so my mom was like, you have to go there. And I was like, okay, I guess that's where I'm going. It sounds good. And so I was in my classes, and in my entire class of, what was it, 300 people? I don't know. It was a lot of people. I could count them, 3 Black people, including myself. And there I had a really good education, and it was super good, but I never really felt supported. There was no community there, Black community.
But I came down to the choice of, after being homeless and bouncing from school to school, I came down to the choice of whether or not I wanted to go to Central High School, which at the time had, I think, a 25% graduation rate, or find something, else. And luckily it was a raffle to get into Northfield, and I luckily got into it. But just like she said, it was a majority white school. It was a different experience for me. And it was weird to be one of the only, there were a couple people, but one of the few people of color and gifted and talented there, and also have to deal with the troubles of going to a school like that. It's a whole new social life. It's a whole new attitude that you kind of have to bring there. It was a great thing for me. A lot of the kids went to McCullough or Bill Roberts, those schools that really challenge kids. But for me, it was a different experience because I hadn't been in a situation like that. And I don't think I would be where I am academically and in life had I not got challenged. but I wish I didn't have to give up my cultural social life for that to happen. Now it's kind of made me want to go to places like I eventually want to transfer to Morehouse, an all male HBCU, because I see why people do it. Because it's nice to feel academically challenged, but also be culturally challenged in terms of growing with somebody, seeing people who grow with you. So that was the thing that I noticed in terms of having to make that choice. Do I want the challenge, or do I want the comfort?
And I think it is traumatic for us to be in educational settings that are consistently that consistently lack representation, and where we have to constantly, I kind of describe it as walking on eggshells for myself, but that is a form of educational trauma. Do you see yourself differently because of your GT identity, formally identified or not in the district? And do you think others see you differently because of your GT identification?
When I was identified as gifted and talented, well, first it made me glad and made me feel like, yes, I had to live up to something. There was a reputation I had to live up to. Otherwise, if I was just identified, it would just be a label. But if I put hard work into that name, I can make it more than a label. I can make it something important, something big in my own way. And yeah, that's what I think. That's what I felt when I was identified as gifted and talented.
In most of my classes, I was either the smartest or one of the smartest kids, and it was more like I was the second teacher in the class telling everybody else how to do the work, if or a whole bunch of people would always be helping or asking for help, and I didn't feel that I had the chance to even get my own work done because they always needed help. And I don't like I don't like saying no to people, especially when they don't understand, because I feel like what's like that's just me being selfish, and what's a little bit of help to someone else so that they can also understand.
I can kind of agree because being in some of the classes at East from freshman year to senior year, I've had maybe one or two teachers tell me that like, hey Nick, today I noticed you're not working today. Matthew over here, another black kid I went to school with in that class, she was like, I noticed that your work when you work, he works. And after that, I was just like, wow, okay. And I started to pay attention to it. So one day I tested it out to see what happened. He didn't work as hard as he usually does. And when I did my work, he started to do it too. It does. It does help to see someone of the same color, maybe even the same gender too, because you're like, okay, if he can do it or she can do it, then I can do it too. And if you start to notice that that person that you're looking at gets it, then it helps because you can go to them and know that you won't be judged. Or
I think as a gifted and talented student, specifically as a Black gifted and talented student, I in a lot of ways look like the slacker, the stereotypical slacker. I'm a very social person. I love to talk. It's actually one of the issues I've had in school always. Um, but a lot of teachers don't, when they first meet me, don't give me the chance, just because of that. Because I like to goof off in class, things like that. But if you say, "Hey, bro, I need you to get this done. I need you to write this essay," um, I think a lot of teachers didn't really, I don't want to say respect me, but they didn't view me as a GT student until Mr. Moldow came to class and said, "Hey, I need to pull out Jabril. I need to talk to him." And it finally clicked with him.
My English teacher actually one day after class was like, thank you for engaging in this class. It's like helped everyone else kind of start talking and challenging other people's ideas. And we really appreciate that. But a lot of people just kind of see the first thing they see is my race and that I talk a lot. And then I'm automatically stereotyped with the talkative Black girl who just doesn't do anything. And that's not who I am.